Hey Dan, so I took a look at your guys' site here, and I definitely see where you're coming from. Technically speaking, the site seems to be well built. It's mobile responsive, and I mean it's a decent website, but it definitely could be elevated. Like when I look at your website, it looks like a site that was well done, but not a lot of time and planning was put into it. Websites are very much like artwork, right? So if you have an artist that puts 2 hours into a piece of art, it could be technically a good piece of artwork, but it's going to be nothing compared to something that same artist or an artist in general puts 1 or 200 hours into, right? I mean, it's just they're not even going to be on the same level. The amount of time and attention you can put into planning and detail and custom graphics. I mean, there's just so much that you can do there. You can just bust out a site and say, "Hey, it's done," or you can really plan it out and make something that's really extraordinary. And a quick site tends to work well if you're a plumber, or if you're a local, like a small time blogger or something. Then I mean, really, you don't need more than a few hours into a website. But if you're really selling a product that's very, very high end, see, people are going to judge your product by the quality of the website that you have that's selling it. I mean, if you have a website that looks like it costs maybe a couple $1,000s, right? Something that somebody put together over the course of a weekend or whatever, but you're selling a product that's a couple $100,000. There's just a major discrepancy there. People are going to say, well, how good is their energy product if they can't even afford to have a decent website? If my chiropractor's website is better than this energy company's website, what does that say about the energy company's product? Something's not lining up there. And so I think that, if correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's kind of where we're at with your guys' site. So I'd asked you over the phone if this was something that you wanted to start from scratch with, or just work on updating. And based on what I'm seeing here, and with a better understanding of what you guys offer, I think this is definitely something that we need to just totally start from scratch. We need to start with the planning process, the structure of the site. It's also called the site map. Basically, like, okay, what is your product? What is your service? Who are the people that we're trying to reach? And then inside of just a spreadsheet, basically plan out the customer journey, how they're going to consume your company message and your product message. We want to make sure that when somebody lands on the site, they really quickly know who you are, what product or service you offer, the features and benefits of that product and service, the case studies of that product and service, and then what they should do next in order to engage you for that product and service. And so that journey, that customer journey, while it's kind of the same for every product, the way that it's presented should be really unique and custom, and really very specific for your product and service. So, for example, here, when I look at the beginning of the top of your site, the above the fold content, just looking at this image here, it makes me feel like I'm going to a ranch. Am I going on a off the grid vacation, or am I talking to an energy company? Right? I mean, that's like a microgrid. This doesn't say microgrid to me, and that's just a symptom of lack of planning. There could have been more time spent on, okay, what is the imagery that we really want to use on this initial above the fold piece of content that we offer people on our homepage. And then kind of like base the homepage from that, right? Your call to action is just call today. I mean, that's fine if you're a plumber, right? You have a leaky faucet, call today. You want to buy a car, call today. But if you're selling microgrid technology, I mean, we're talking about, I don't know the product very well, but I'm assuming it's a massively expensive product, high ticket here, where you're orchestrating, many different entities coming in to make this thing happen. That call today is not a good call to action. We need a much higher level, much more sophisticated qualification process for leads to reach out to you. That's going to legitimize you more. When somebody's looking to spend, several $100,000, and the call to action is call today, they're like, oh, okay, this seems kind of Mickey Mouse. But if the call to action is a sophisticated process of compiling the information that you need in order to qualify that person, and they submit that through a designated form, that's a much higher level of call to action. That's going to make a difference. So, there's a lot of things to talk about, basically, and we need to go back to the drawing board and really just kind of plan the site from the ground up. That's what I would really recommend. And then once we have an idea of, okay, how is the customer interacting with the site, what are the different pages we're making, then we can take a look at the content you guys have. We may decide that the content you have is just fine. We don't need to rework it, or we may want to rework it. And then we take that content, we start creating mock-ups, and that's really where you achieve that elevated design, is in the mock-up, because we can produce several different design concepts of the homepage, and they're going to be in an image file. So we don't build the site yet, they're just in an image file, and then you can kind of pick and choose which components you like. We can make major overhauls, revisions, until we have a homepage that is like perfect. Like you look at this and you say, okay, this screams British American Energy. This is exactly what we're looking for. We absolutely love it. And then we take that mock-up and we use that as inspiration to design the rest of the pages. And if you really nail the homepage mock-up, the rest of the pages come together really easily, and you have this really nice, cohesive, very high level. It feels well planned out. It feels high end, feels expensive type of website that's going to make a big impact, I think, for a company like what you guys have. So to give you just a couple little examples here, this is a website that we just built for a bidders company. The site's actually just getting launched, so there's a couple things that are unfinished on it. But I mean, you can see, like, when you scroll through the homepage, what we really wanted to achieve is something that is all about alchemistry, kind of like witchy, herbal. We got the product imagery here. And the website really speaks without even having to read the content. Like, one thing you mentioned is that you feel like your site is really reliant on the content, the text content, and that's it. That is a bad thing, because an image says 1,000 words, right? So if you're relying just simply on the text content, you're missing out on all of the messaging that the imagery can convey across to the user. Whereas with this website is very much in the opposite, where you don't even really have to read the content at all. Like, if all of this content, like the blog posts, for example, these are just dummy right now, they're all in Latin. Well, if all of the content was in Latin, I mean, if you looked at the site and every bit of content was Latin, you actually would still know exactly what the site's about. I mean, you can see the product, you can see exactly what's going on. You don't even honestly need the text content to convey the message. Another example here is a website we built a few months back, and the reason I bring this one up is because for this particular company, we spent a lot of time with the brand design for the graphics. So every single image on the site is very purposefully done to match a specific theming that they were going after. And so you can kind of look at the difference between this image. This is just a lady with a book, right? But the graphics that we added in really make it a lot more interesting, and it really elevates the level of the brand. When you look at that, it elevates them up to the level of like Pepsi or BMW. Those companies, they spend a lot of time and attention thinking about things like that. And then when you compare that to your guys' site here, how much does this say about your brand? Single point of accountability. It's just a dot with some arrows. This is literally like the icon that you find as the exit icon on your cell phone. Like, this is just the most generic stuff that you can find, and this really lowers the level of quality, or the anticipated level of quality of your product when somebody lands on your site. So then compared to like this one right here, this is a custom design graphic, right? Totally custom. You're not going to find this anywhere else on the internet. And that is very elevated, right? Elevated as far as the design goes. It makes the company and the service seem a lot more high end. It's just the kind of like the perception of it, at least. You're trying to engineer your perception through the graphics and the design of your site. So let me know if I'm on track here. I got a really good feeling that this is exactly what you're talking about, and I'd love to jump on a call with you guys and talk more about how we might approach this, get an idea of your budget. Because you can build a site anywhere from building a site is kind of like building a house, right? I mean, it can cost you $10,000 or $10 million depending on what you're trying to do. I'm talking about a house. Websites don't cost $10 million, but I'm sure you get the point. So anyway, let me know when you have time, and let's jump on a call and we can talk more about this. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Thanks, Dan.